Hey team, and thanks for joining me for today's session on 3D print basics. In today's session, I'm going to extend the discussion from those previous videos. I'm going to talk about a top-heavy model and how to find solutions for a top-heavy model. I'm also going to continue the discussion on overhang and supports. Right now on the screen, you can see two spinning tops. It's a child's toy. If you were to twist the upper shaft, then the toy itself would spin in circles for a fairly decent amount of time. And the pointed area on the bottom allows it to have contact with the table so that it spins. However, if we were to try to print a model of this type, we would have some difficulties. Let me show you here in the slicing software what it would look like and why we would have problems with this model. Let me grab this item over here and scoot back in time. So here we are back near layer number 446. And as we're getting to the very beginning of the model, you can see how just a small amount of filament has contact with the print bed. As it moves up, it's going to get heavier and heavier on the top. The problem with that is that we only have such a small amount of filament holding this model to the print bed that it's eventually going to snap off. It will fall over. It doesn't have a base that is large enough or substantial enough in order to maintain that print over a period of time. In order to remedy a situation like this, my recommendation is to slice your model in half and then flip the lower region and drop both of those onto the print bed. And this is what it looks like. In the model just a second ago, you probably saw those two items on the right-hand side, and that's what I did in order to solve the problem. By slicing those two other portions in half, and then making sure that both of them are in contact with the print bed, you now have bases that are fairly substantial during the course of that print. Because they are substantial, they don't run the risk of snapping off and falling over while that print is printing. Sometimes you don't even need to slice or to cut your project into pieces. Sometimes you can just simply flip it upside down or on its side in order to print well. So make sure that your design has a stable base. All right, so here's another design strategy that you will need to think about as you are designing models. This right here is a birdhouse. There's a large cavity or opening on the interior, and we also have this stick in the front that allows a bird to perch, land, or stop right here prior to entering that birdhouse. In this next piece of the video, I'm going to talk about supports, and I'm also going to talk about overhang. So here we have the birdhouse inside of the slicing software, so we can get a feel for or a picture of what this print would actually look like. Now, remember, as the filament is exiting the extruder through the nozzle, it's kind of like wet spaghetti, and it takes just a little while in order for that filament to solidify so that it doesn't sag or hang down or turn into a wild mess. And the cavity exists inside of the birdhouse, and it looks tidy and fantastic, and maybe we're eager to print it. However, I need to share with you that there are some severe failures that will happen if we were to print this model exactly the way we see it right now. So I'm going to scoot over to the right-hand side, and I'm going to click this button that shows us what it looks like in order for that print to actually run. And I also want to see any supports that MakerBot has decided are essential for this print. And what do I mean by supports? When I use the word supports, I mean that MakerBot wants to supply breakaway material so that the print will not fail. Let me go ahead and click on this button so that it disappears, and then I'll bring it back and explain what it means. So over here on the left, let me take you through the timeline. I'll scoot back to the very beginning. So the orange is the raft, the green is the actual print. And unfortunately, what we actually see is all of this massive orange material running around the perimeter of our project. I'm going to tick this little box right here so that our supports disappear. And then I'm going to tick the box so that the supports show up again. basically what is required by the user when this is finished is that you're going to have to break away everything that's orange. It's not going to print orange. It's going to print whatever color filament you've put in the machine. But MakerBot is showing us that the orange represents the support material that's temporary and needs to be broken off, and the green is your actual print. And in your mind, you might be thinking, well, why on earth are there so many supports? Let me rotate this around just a little bit. And we talked about that area where the bird is going to perch or land before it begins to enter the birdhouse. That little stick, if you will, that exits the opening. In order for that piece to print properly, we must put support material underneath it. Otherwise, it will turn into a mass of messy spaghetti. When you have that hot, wet, almost liquefied filament coming out, and the printer is depositing filament essentially into outer space, what we need is we must have a support layer underneath it so that it does not turn into spaghetti underneath it. So this breakaway support layer is designed to support that filament while it's in its liquefied state. As that perch rests on top of the breakaway support, it is going to be supported adequately so that it prints properly. And when the print is finished, you, the user, are supposed to snap away the area beneath it because it is thin, hollow, it's designed to be broken. But your project has been designed in such a way that the plastic is stiff, solid, secure, and it should not break. Wow, Mrs. Culver, why on earth do we have support material running all the way around the entire project? Well, friends, up here at the roof line, where you begin to see the outer structure of the house, transitioning into the roof component, this is what we classify as overhang. Let me go ahead and take those support materials away. I'm going to tick that button, and then we're going to see that orange area around the perimeter disappear. Now you can see that sharp 90-degree angle that lives right around the perimeter of the home structure. So as the nozzle is moving around that outer perimeter, and you go from that wall area and you see this layer being deposited along here, the extruder and the nozzle are moving around the perimeter layer by layer by layer. You have the hot liquefied filament that's basically depositing itself into mid-air, up in the sky, a few inches above the bed, above the print bed, and nothing for it to land on. In a situation like that, where your liquefied filament has nothing to land on, you would end up with a very stringy mess. And that's not profitable. Your print would be ruined at that point. And so that's why in a situation like this, you must have that breakaway outer layer supporting the filament as it produces the roof line. So as I move through, you can see that roof line then being constructed up. So in a situation like this, instead of wasting a massive amount of filament in order to create the support layer around the perimeter, you could actually break the birdhouse just like we broke the top into two pieces. One possibility is that you could print the roof separately from the actual birdhouse itself. If I take the roof off, okay, you wouldn't print the roof in mid-air like this. You would create two different files. I would head back into Tinkercad. I would duplicate this project. One would be the body of the birdhouse, and the other one would be the roof of the birdhouse. And then I can use glue in order to glue these two pieces together. I still will need supports right here on the area where the bird is going to land. Nothing will change my model so that supports are not needed for that specific area. But By turning it into two different pieces, now I don't have to print support material around the entire perimeter of the birdhouse, and it saves money by not having to break away all of that material and throw it away. All right, friends, just to recap, we talked about overhang, the area that hangs over your print. We also talked about supports. Supports are necessary and essential so that your print is not ruined. Mrs. Culver also talked about how you can flip the model if needed, and I also talked about how you can break it into pieces and then glue it together once you are finished. One of the reasons why I made sure to include this in our lesson is so that you can understand what characteristics go into a quality build, because now you know some of the problems that you might face if you're trying to print something. All right, team, thanks so much for paying attention and have a great day.